I am a member of the 1st Army Association Lincoln Branch. This year, 1997, I have the honour of being their chairman. I introduce myself, Bill Goddard. I served with the 6th Battalion Lincolnshire Regiment during the Second World War, finishing up as a full corporal. The battalion served with the 1st Army North Africa, American 5th Army landings at Salerno, Italy, later 8th Army, Italy. At the 1st Army Association meeting, it fell for me to give a brief account of my experiences with the Lincolns. With your permission, I'd like to relay that talk to you. My story starts by joining the 6th Battalion Lincolnshire Regiment on the south coast at Dymchurch in Kent. After a full year of much training and activity, i.e. air raids and shelling across the Channel, we moved to Sunningdale in preparation to travel up to Scotland to board a ship, the Sobieski. When war broke out, I was an apprentice bricklayer. I was not called up straight away, so I then volunteered for the Navy, but was told to wait for my call-up. My reason for mentioning this, because my preference for the Navy took a nasty blow when we boarded the Sobieski. We were packed like sardines. I myself didn't suffer seasickness, but there was plenty of it around us. An example of this, our platoon was on the upper deck doing PT one morning when one member decided to be sick. He rushed out of the line to the ship's rail to let go. Sorry to say, it was into the wind, so we all shared it. By the time we arrived at Algiers, we had gained our sea legs, but had to revert back quickly to our land legs to take us on a gruelling march to Mason Carry in burning sunshine. When we left England, we'd left snow behind. As you all well know, the nights in Africa could be very cold. A reason for mentioning this, on the very first night at Mason Carry, a character in our platoon was doing his stint on guard, decided to wrap a blanket around his shoulders for warmth. He was mistaken for a wog by the guard commander and nearly got shot. Our next move was to the battle zone, which took approximately 3 days. All marching troops went by rail. We at last stopped at the Muncher area, but with my memory and a brief glance at the 6th Battalion history book, I am able to relate this little talk. Hopefully, I won't bore you. But to me, this get-together is about relating and listening. Muncher area was fairly quiet compared with what was to come. The biggest enemy was the weather, and rats, so big, bold and aggressive, it was learned one huge creature tried to make a meal out of a chap's ear while he slept. May I now point out some of the positions the Lincolns saw action: Greenhill, Baldy, Medjit Elbab, Sedginane, Djebel Aboid, Goblat Plains. Both Greenhill and Baldy brings back several memories to me. We took over from previous unit. With me being small, it gave me an advantage. It must have been a 6-foot who dug our trench, i.e. Brengun team. When daylight came, we was pleased of that deep trench, because the slightest movement brought down a hail of mortar bombs and machine gun fire. Greenhill and Baldy was, as no doubt you know, was 2 large hills held by the Germans. Greenhill was very green with vegetation. Baldy was barren. After several days of wet, rain-filled trenches, movement only at night, we were relieved to march back to Sedginane. Sedginane had to be held whilst the guards got dug in behind us. This proved to be fairly costly. 21 killed, 98 missing, 46 wounded. But the enemy was held, while the withdrawal was ordered. the Goddard plain. In the distance was the Amran feature, held by the enemy. To get to it, open spaces of cornfields. The move started 10 p.m. and by dawn found a grim struggle in progress. One reason for speaking of this battle, several members of Dog Company, my company, lost their lives there. What made it more personal, most of them had joined up with me out of the building trade. By mentioning this, it kind of pays tribute to them. Still on the Goddard plain, I now wish, after all these years, pay a special tribute to a very good pal of mine who got killed in those cornfields. Name Arthur Croft, from Scorby near Scunthorpe. In Civvy Street he was a bricklayer. If his brickwork was as neat as he kept his army gear, it would be worth looking at. He was a quiet man and a good soldier. Him and I were good mates from joining up. I don't know why, because with him being neat and smart, I'm sorry to say I was the opposite. We were still good pals. The night before we went into battle on the Goddard plains, he seemed to know he would be killed. He asked me to go and see his mother if I got home. I joked with him, but could see he meant it. He was calm. Sorry to say, while crawling through those cornfields, a mortar bomb took the top of his head off. A few years later, I did visit his mother and told her a little different story of how he died, to try and sweeten her great loss. What a small world. The Germans had now fallen back and the 6th Armoured Division passed through. As we, the infantry, foot-slogged along the cart track, the German planes made it very uncomfortable. In one of these raids, we had to dive for cover when a motorcyclist from the 6th Armoured grinded to a sudden halt, dived for cover with us. That same cyclist was an old pal from school days. We exchanged greetings. He then shot off at great speed. As a matter of interest, he became world champion sidecar passenger in the 1950s. Our next move forward, overlooked by the Bogomai feature, known to us as the Twin Tits, a bare rocky hill with twin crests which resembled the upper portion of a maiden's torso. The Germans was well dug in these hills. After several attempts were finally dislodged. Next move was Medji's Elbab, the place of many encounters. Then on to Longstop Hill. The last battle casualty was Private Story of the Pioneer Platoon. He stood on a mine and died of his wounds. Things moved so fast we didn't catch up. That's just a brief outline of my memories as a Bren gunner, 16 Platoon, Dog Company, 6th Battalion Lincolnshire Regiment, North Africa. Training. A few months now were spent training for invasion landings, which we didn't know where, but could only guess. We received several reinforcements to make up our numerous losses. It seemed nice to relate to these lads, who had never been in action, what it was all about. We was now the old sweats. Preparation for the Salerno landings. After the weeks of training for the Salerno landings, the battalion was concentrated just outside the port of Bizerta, where enemy aircraft were active. We lost a few pals in one such raid. One such pal, a Lincoln lad, joined up with me in the same section as myself, name Private Noel Hunt. Perhaps some of you from Lincoln knew him. Boarding the ship was the next big move. As you know, as ordinary soldiers only knew what was going on around us. After studying our history book, I find the battalion was split up into different ships, owing to the risk involved. The day before we landed, news came through of the Italians packing up. Our first thought was it would make our task easier, but as you know, it made it worse. The Germans rushed their own divisions in, which made the opposition much tougher.